a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below this video. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter, etc. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Jose, Arwin and Anthony. Good to have you all.
Yo.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Morning, guys.
Morning, wherever you may be. Got a comment yesterday from someone saying, why did you kick Rumpus? I don't know who kicked Rumpus yesterday, but it presumably wasn't specifically directed at me, although I probably did kick him at some stage. But why did you kick the Rumpus? I like to have a globe head demolition for breakfast. In other words, he was expressing his disdain at the fact that his breakfast routine was ruined by the fact that there was a bit of a love-in and a circle jerk instead of rumpusing and us tearing him a new one. So there we go. Don't mess with people's breakfast routine. Hey, Chocolate.
Morning, guys.
Good morning. Chocolate. So, any signs of curvature, gentlemen?
Not curvature, but we've got plenty of flatness, gloriousness. Nathan, please share my screen.
Oh, right, okay. Straight into sharing screens, eh? Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Right, you're on.
So we're gonna give a massive shout out to P900 Coolpix, otherwise known as Sandra, or P1000 Coolpix. Look at this for glorious. She's basically done what Ranty's done recently, but she's put the center of frame in. So she's obviously been watching. She's been watching what Del said. She's been watching what we've been saying in terms of perspective, and she's applied it. She's at 800 feet above the sea. And basically, do you remember when I described the Isle of Man and I said that it kind of looked like you were looking through curtains, you could peel back the atmosphere and you could see this floaty land? Well, this is exactly what we're going to see now. Not so much in terms of floaty land, but in terms of the Isle of Man. Now, if the Earth's flat, right, this Isle of Man, we don't even have to do any maths. It's 80 plus miles away. It's well gone behind the curve. You don't need to do any maths for it. You just know that it shouldn't be seen because it's so far away at 80 plus miles. You never, ever should see it, ever, right? So what she's showing now is that she's got it as close to the center of frame as she possibly can, but she's just panning round. Now, you'll notice to the left, you'll notice that it's a little bit wishy-washy, like muggy, right? Visibility is not quite as good as what you need it to be. It's a bit misty, right? That's humidity in the atmosphere. That's moisture. That's the blockage that stops you from seeing from the east coast of America to Paris, boys and girls. That's the reason why you can't see that far, aside from the fact that everything gets smaller as a function of distance, something that all the curve calculator maths, including Walter Bislin's, fails to address. However, as she now pans across to the right, the visibility begins to improve, and we can see the emergence of some turbines, which, you know, we've all seen the turbines in itself. It's not that much of an impressive feat. However, look at what she can also see in the background, boys and girls. She can see landmass. She's pointing out where she is at this point, I believe. I'll just wait for this animation bit to come off screen because the next clip is absolutely glorious. So she was pointing something in the foreground. Look at what's through the turbines. Imagine looking through the curtains on a misty day, and imagine that you've got to make, like, clean off the condensation off the window, and then you can peer through that little hole. That's just what she's seeing here. And if that, I mean, obviously it's 86 miles away, right? How far do we need to be able to see, boys and girls, before it becomes blatantly obvious that we're not living on a curvy ball? Why can she see it? It's massively behind the curve of the Earth. You don't need to do any maths on it this far away. You can see the cameras at the maximum range, but there it is in all its glory. Center of frame, But wherever the horizon is, look where the land is in the background. All this is meant to be behind the curve of the Earth, boys and girls. It can't be explained with looming. This is utter garbage. The Earth that we live on is clearly and what is it, Nathan? Obviously and observably flat. How is this explained on a ball? Ridiculous, boys and girls. Ridiculous.
Definitely not
How glorious is this?
A sign of it being very flat. Nice.
Very, very flat.
Very, very big shout out to Cool900 Coolpix, Sandra. Excellent footage.
So make sure you go over to her channel, like, subscribe, put a comment on the video so she sees that you've seen it. Because this is $1 million picture. This is. We are seeing that far. That stuff should way be behind the curve. Because don't forget, it's got a reducing size as a function of distance, and it's got to drop behind the curve of the Earth. So how big should a mountain look from 80 miles away? Pretty small. But then you've got to drop it into that curve. That's the bit where it goes wrong for them, because it isn't curved. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. This is more proof. How much proof do you need to have, boys and girls? Look at the glorious quality of this picture. So massive shouts out to Sandra P900 Coolpix. And I hope everyone goes to her channel and likes this video, because it deserves to go viral. It's absolutely epic. So thank you so much, Sandra. Ranty, this is how you get a nice flat horizon. Tripods aglow. But look at this, man. Riley, it's glorious.
Riley, it's that land in the back, all the way in the back. That's 86 miles away?
86 miles away, man.
Nah, man, that's crazy.
86 miles. So obviously this proves that this isn't, they've hijacked perspective with the curve calculator maths, and you can see it. There's no way that you see. Look at how much you're seeing as well, man. Look at the size of the landmass. Now, okay, you can say, well, how are the turbines 600 feet and they're 2,000 feet? Yeah, but the 2,000 feet are 80 miles away. The turbines are about 40 miles away. So the turbines stop shrinking at 40 miles, but the mountains carry on shrinking because they've got to go further away. That's perspective. That's why the mountains look a little bit taller. But if you were to push them mountains further back and keep the turbines still, the mountains would still get smaller because of perspective. The Earth is obviously and observably flat, and this is an absolutely massive video. So make sure you go over and like her video, because it's fantastic. Massive shout outs again.
Stick a link in the side chat so I can stick it in the public chat, please, Anthony.
Say that again.
Stick a link to that video in the side chat for the Hangout, and I'll stick it in the public chat so that people can go and subscribe immediately to Sandra Cool900 Sandra, who is channel name P900 Coolpix. Thank you very much. Let's grab that.
Awesome work, Sandra.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Nathan, that clip needs to be put in your reel of evidence that flicks over, because it's absolutely glorious. And the more it goes on, the more people. You honestly, if you think that we live on a ball as a result of this, you are absolutely stupid. Honest to God, the evidence is overwhelming. Can't put the link in the side. Oh, you've done it.
Yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff for Sandra's channel. I've stuck the link in the
and let's not forget. Shout out to the GoFundMe campaign that she set up, because without that GoFundMe, you wouldn't have that footage. You would have a P900 footage that was a little bit inferior, and they'd be arguing that it's just a smudge, and we'd be arguing about whether we can see the mountains or not, and we'd be saying it will be, and they'd be saying it's not. Black and white, isn't it? The mountains have not fallen behind the curve of the Earth. They're still bloody massive at 80 miles away. The Earth's obviously and observably flat. So
crystal clear, yeah. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nikon Company, for creating the P1000. More to come. Better.
Yeah, shout out to Nikon, the sponsor of the Flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see any response from any knobhead baller. Let's be honest, Miles the Liar Davis is claiming that his observation cannot be on a flat plane. Well, how are you going to explain why there's no curve in that picture? The whole mountain should be gone at 80 miles away because of the curve of the Earth. So I'd love to see what the explanation for that nonsense is. They'll just fudge it with a bit of maths.
So, any signs of axial rotation?
Forget axial. It's flat, mate.
Yeah, but no. Still claim it spins.
Yeah, Timmy Osman said, yeah, the pole rotation in the poles in the southern and northern hemisphere. So he said, yeah, sometimes you have to presuppose because you need to visualize where you're standing. So he said the rotation of the stars tells you you're in a sphere with an axial rotation.
So, in other words, you say, prove axial rotation, and Tim goes, right, imagine you're on a sphere, first of all. So you don't
Yeah.
prove it.
Yeah.
Just first of all, put yourself on a sphere, and everything I say from now on will tally into that. Yeah. So clearly Tim has adapted the fact that it's a presupposition as though that's some sort of defence. Wow. How stupid is Tim Osman? No, just acknowledgement of the presupposition doesn't make it justifiable. It still makes it the work of a clown. A presuppositional clown. That'd be you, Tim Osman. That's not a proof of the globe. It's what's called a logical fallacy. Yeah? Problem in cognition, Tim? I thought you were all about this stuff. Good logic, bad logic? No? Oh well, moving on. Any signs that you can have a gas pressure without a container?
We're ridiculous. How can anybody put a gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane? You'd have to be an utter moron to think that you could do that.
No, you could do it very temporarily.
What, with a high-speed camera and explosion, right?
Before entropy.
Here we go. This is a high-speed camera and explosion, isn't it? And I can feel it coming.
Huh? Oh, no, I could look for it. Let me see.
I'm waiting for Quantum Eraser to show me. He say in Louisiana, the atmosphere is so thick that you can cut with a machete like a square of atmosphere and take it in your home, like put it under your armpit and walk around with different atmospheres because it's so thick, and that's why you got so much distortion in some footages and images in the whole New Orleans and Louisiana. He spent a lot of time in there. I was chatting with him the other day.
Hey Nathan, there's a request from chat. Colin Stewart says, simple question. If Nathan and Riley et al. Are so clever, why are they not shaking up the scientific world? Let's have a think about that one. You've got Simon Dan, you've got conspiracy cats, all on the scene in the last, 6 months or so. You've got people like Miles the Liar Davis. Well, actually, we'll not lump him in with these. We'll just go with conspiracy cats and Simon Dan. Somehow they've managed to get more subs than what everybody on this whole panel has managed to accrue in like less than 6 months. Now, I'm not being bitter when I say this, but let's be honest, right? Is it the fact that they're being promoted in some way as well as buying subs, or is it based on the content of their material? Now, obviously, Simon Dan debunks unknown flat earthers like me, and he somehow manages to aloft. What is he on now? 90-something,000 subs.
I got a note from a troll saying he breached 100,000. What a shock! It's amazing that he knew
he did it.
He'd reached that in advance as well. Amazing.
Simon Dan.
This isn't really addressing the troll's question about science, though.
Well, what's the answer? Why is it that, me and Nathan were talking about this before. How is it possible that people like these numpties that basically debunk people like me that are unknown in flat earth, not in flat earth, but unknown on YouTube? We're not known YouTubers in this little corner that we're in. They so-called debunk us, and they end up with 100,000 subs. So even if you're going to be biased and say it's because they are fantastic, let's just say that they are fantastic. The reality is you don't get that level of growth unless there's something doing something in the background that we're not aware of. And at the end of the day, we're here day in, day out. Out 2 hours every single day. And there's no evidence of a curvy, rotating, orbiting, gravity-bound space ball flying through the earth. If there was, we wouldn't be on this side of the panel and we would be on your side. The show would die. But the fact is we're 500 shows in and there's still no evidence of curvature. There's still no evidence of axial rotation. There's still no evidence of anything to do with gravity or anything to do with the nonsense that is heliocentrism. Yet that somehow they've managed to get to like silly, crazy amounts of subs. You tell me, why is it that we're not more famous? Not that I'm begging for it, but I'm making the point. I agree with you. Why is it that we're not being more famous? Because we are causing rifts.
Hold on. That wasn't his question. So he said, why aren't you shaking up the scientific world? Well, to address that specifically, what the scientific world is a meaningless statement. Science is a method. Science studies the natural world. That's what science does. So to assert that there's a scientific world, well, unless it's been formulated into a hypothesis and then validated or invalidated with systematic experimentation, the scientific world can kiss my ass. Because we deal with science _science, not the scientific world, not the scientific community, not the body of science. None of these reification fallacies apply here. When we ask for science, we'll actually scrutinise what's presented here on its scientific validity, not on its peer review validity, not on what men in white coats with badges say is science. Science is a method, and its sole purpose is establishing the cause of an effect. That effect being observed in the natural world. That observed phenomena will be something physical. It will occur in our world. Science is a study of the natural world, and that is precisely what we here, not exclusively here, but us specifically here, are interested in. The physical and natural world. Not mathematics, not peer review, not consensus opinion, not what Joe Bloggs thinks, but what you can actually prove if you claim you have science. And let's make it absolutely clear, there is no science whatsoever to back the claim that we live on a spinning sphere. We do not. The Earth is obviously and observably flat, and any monkey that comes along asserting that they have scientific validity to any assertion that they can back the Earth being spherical can come here and present it, and I absolutely guarantee it will be torn asunder by somebody on this panel. We do deal with science, and the scientific world is a reification fallacy globeheads can cling on to as long as they can type stuff into Wikipedia. Science will give you a cause if you have a valid hypothesis backed by systematic experimentation that gives you a valid result and backs your presumed cause. Those are things we deal with. Those are what we ask globe-tired religious zealots to actually present to back the claim that the Earth is a sphere. And I'll tell you what they've got. Nothing. So don't give me a lecture about what the scientific world has to say about this show. We deal with real science. Science underscored. Not with a prefix. Not with an addition. Not computer science. Contradiction in terms. M. Scott Veach, speaking to you, lying son of an astronaut. We deal with actual science. The natural world. That's what we're talking about on a flat earth debate. What is the natural world? If you want to assert it's spherical, you better damn well be able to prove it. And you can't. That's why we're here.
Well said.
Utter moron, Rumpus. Get yourself on the panel. Let's see you explain Sandra's observation. 86 miles, mountains gloriously seen in the background. Not just little smudges, you can see all of them. So where is it going wrong, Rumpus?
Not quite done with housekeeping. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Yeah, Rumpus is the evidence for the distance of the sun. What a moron.
No.
Nope, no distance to the sun.
What about scientific evidence of gravity?
No. If there was evidence for gravity, Nathan, I'd be arguing it. I would be arguing it, but there isn't any.
Any evidence of a
Nope, no
self-perpetuating?
gravity
Oh no, my bad. What was that? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say no. There's no evidence of gravity.
Any evidence that you can have a self-perpetuating molten iron core? you got evidence, Eleanor, have you? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No, none. Only seismology, seismographs, basically big metal detectors. They like skimmy them over the ground and like hope for a reflected beam, and they interpret based on the squiggles what is the composition of the Earth. And the squiggles turned out to be completely inaccurate when it was called a super deep borehole. And basically, you can get these things wrong because they're subject to the opinions and the interpretations of the people or the person observing them. That does not make it a sphere. Oh, and by the way, conspiracy cats, the P wave and the S wave being uniform. Yeah, I don't think you understand. They're uniform on a flat plane as well, idiot.
Okie dokie. What about evidence of the R value? Earth radius?
Absolutely none.
Still presupposing it with their calculator, eh?
They've got to make a flat plane look curved in the maths, and they've got to fudge it somehow. So they've got to bury it. I was listening yesterday. I didn't get a chance to listen to your show, most of your show yesterday, but I was listening to the back and forth. It was quite polite, actually, even though it was based on a massive disagreement over what was going on between Rumpus and Adam Meakin. And basically, Rumpus, that's the way to have a conversation. You have it a back and forth. You let someone stop, and then you let somebody else speak, and then you speak, and then they speak, and then you speak, and then you get progression. But you can't do that, can you, Rumpus? You can only obfuscate because you have to have these things destroyed. Well, no, we're in control. You guys can't prove your science. We're pointing that out, and you guys have got to try and obfuscate the truth. Well, it's not going to work, Rumpus. We're not going away. It's just going to get bigger and bigger, and more and momentum. And we're riding that wave. Cowabunga, dude.
Hello, Peanuts. Good to have you. Was it Peanuts or was it Physics? Was it Physics Warrior? My bad. Was it Physics Warrior that joined or Peanuts? No, Physics. My bad. Physics.
I like how people in the chat is pointing fingers at Rumpus, like, Rumpus, how much do they pay you to be in the show? Or Rumpus, who do you work for? People are interrogating him. That's hilarious.
I don't think Rumpus gets paid. Because if somebody was paying Rumpus to do what he does, I'd be wanting my money back. I think he does it because he's a moron.
Hello, Zinda.
Hi.
Hey, Zinda, have you got any thoughts on Sandra's video?
I haven't seen the video. Which
that's okay, Zinda. I can play it again. Would you like me to play it for you? Just for you, Zinda. We can do it again.
Just post the link in the group chat and.
No, I insist, Nathan. Present my screen. Let's see what Zinda thinks.
Sure, no problem.
Really good footage. Yeah, we all want to see it again.
Hang on. I'll have to get back to it. Oh, bloody hell. Let's go into my history. Where is she? There we go. Zinda, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see the opening credit that she's put on rather aptly? This, Zinda.
Yeah.
He has his head buried in the sand. Are you familiar with this, yeah?
Yeah. Of course. I did it all the time.
Now, basically, these mountains that are in the background are 80 plus miles away. I think it's 86. Don't quote me on it. I think it's about.
Where is it?
I don't know where she's looking from. She does give the name of it.
What's the place called? What's the area called?
She's on Beacon Fell at an elevation of 864 feet.
How did you know that?
Kind was This is how we're getting good at this, because she's even got the crosshairs on screens in there. She's put them on to identify the center of frame, which is where the camera's pointing at, right? We had that conversation and we understand that these things are important, apparently. We have to work these things out because we have ballers that tell lies about the height that they claim they're at and stuff. But anyway, as you can see, she pans across to the left. It's a little bit murky. Can't quite see as far. She zooms in a little bit. Can't quite see them. You can see the turbines, but you can't really make these things out.
Are those mountains behind?
Yeah, it's the Isle of Man.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So she goes further left, and you can see that visibility decreases as she gets further to the left. But then she starts going across to the right, and you can see that when she goes to the right, the visibility improves and gets significantly better. And as she does this, all of a sudden, you can see an awful lot of stuff that should be gone way behind the curve of the Earth because of something called perspective that makes things look smaller, and because of the curvature of the Earth. Now, remember, with perspective, right? Things get smaller as a function of distance, but they've also got to drop behind that curve. That's the bit that the math doesn't account for. So as she gets back into the better visibility, you can see literally there's mist in front of her, but then you can see the turbines become a lot more clear. And then you can see what looks like a little triangle just to the right of center now. Now she's pointing out this building that's on the promenade with that little chimney stack. And from there, you can see, is that chimney stack there with the building on it? I don't know why she's pointed that out. There will be a reason. But look, as you peer through the mist, you can see what looks like a smudge. But it's not just any smudge. This smudge is the Isle of Man. It's supposed to be 86 miles away and prominently behind the curve of the Earth. Because of perspective, we don't need to do any maths on this. 86 miles away. So she's at the elevation. It's got an elevation of 1,433 feet, but the hidden height is 1,600, and that doesn't even account for perspective. That's the what is it, Nathan?
That's the whole numbers. It's the perspective exclusive whole numbers. So this wind turbine, for instance, can you scroll back on the video to about a third of the way through? So you've got two different turbines in frame. One that's further away, and you know what's shocking about it? It looks smaller. It's a revelation. Go back a bit further. It's just before she zooms back into the wind turbines. She sees one that's in the near foreground, closer to her. Keep going back a bit further. Or it might be here. She scrolls across. There we go. See the tops of that turbine? What a shock. It looks bigger. You know, because it's closer to you. Perspective and all. Shocking, isn't it?
So they're clearly not going behind no curve. Because even with the perspective hijacking curvature calculator, 0 of it should be seen. None of it should be seen.
Look, if the smokestack is direct in the middle of the screen, so she is a guide for she throwing a line of sight. She say what she's looking is straight looking across that smokestack. So she knows she's looking at the mountain because she's throwing a direct line of sight, taking that smokestack as a reference. Just she didn't miss what she was pointing in the map. She's seeing that mountain 80+ miles away.
So this is what she's looking at. Kronk Nai Arai Lai. I don't know why they call them weird names for mountains, but they do. But the point is, when she gets to the crescendo, 86 miles away, it's got an elevation of 1,433 feet, but the target hidden height is 1,667. And we know that that's applied against the whole height of the mountain, the orthographic height of the mountain, the total height of the mountain. It's not applied against the 10 pixels that you see on screen. So when you apply it against the 10 pixels that are seen on screen, that's when it should drop behind the curve of the Earth. You shouldn't see it, and it should be way gone. Not just 300, 400 feet gone. It's got to be way gone because they apply the hidden height against the total height of the mountain. And the mountain doesn't look that high when it's that far away, does it? It looks a lot smaller, but that hidden value, that curve, that's an absolute. So you've got to reduce the size of the mountain, then apply your hidden height to it, and then what do you know? It's way going to be gone. So it's gone in perspective, but it's also gone on your maths.
What they basically claim is this mountain, which is at 86 miles away, should be above the height of the turbines because it's obviously bigger, right? It's obviously much taller than the turbines. That's what they're claiming. They don't realise how dumb they are by making such a claim that they're literally telling their audience that they're excluding perspective when they misrepresent how we actually do see the world. Flat.
Now, of course, Miles Delia Davis, at this point, we would go into an orthographic side-on viewpoint. He would put the mountains in at that absolute height, relative, and they would not be relative to these turbines. They'd be the absolute height. And he would say, on a flat Earth, this is what you would expect to see, and completely misrepresent our argument. And in doing so, persuade people that somehow this supports a sphere Earth. But what he wouldn't do is tell you that none of this should be behind the curve of the Earth, and that's assuming that you haven't accounted for perspective. But if you told people that the curve calculators don't account for perspective either, and then drop it behind the curve, not only is it gone, it's well gone. So Zinda, my question to you is...
observer position?
So Zinda, my question to you is, does this make you feel as though you live on a sphere, or is it looking remarkably flat?
Well, I would say that's some good flat Earth proof, and I'm glad you brought it up here.
So come on then, Mouthy, Rumpus.
Okay, I just need to do some quick... What's the observer position? What's the location?
The location is Beacon Fell at an elevation of 864 feet.
Beacon Fell. Is that in Preston?
Not sure.
Beacon Fell, View Holiday Park? Preston, yeah, all seem to be in Preston. Okay.
Yeah, she lives somewhere around that area, so it will be close.
Okay. I'm looking Google Earth now.
Yes.
I could share my screen if you're interested.
That's okay. Let's just wait for your nonsense. Looking forward to it.
Okay, I think I found the Beacon Fell. I'll share my screen just in case.
Yeah, I want to see a live try of debunking.
Yeah, you can see the live debunking here.
Live debunking.
Try.
Don't talk rubbish, Rumpus.
Right, so there's the Beacon Fell Visitor Centre. I don't know if you can see my screen. It's Google Earth. Right, so let's see what this says. 221 meters. What height did she say it was?
I don't know whether she was at the top or not.
800 plus.
Her claim is... Hang on.
She's mentioned 800 and something feet, didn't she?
864 feet.
Oh God, okay. What's that in meters?
200 and something.
Yeah, because that's why I got 223 at the
meters.
Okay, well, so that sounds about. Let me just go and check.
Sounds about right.
864 feet in meters is.
Okay, if you do the count, that'll be useful.
263, it says.
263. Okay, let's have a look at that one. Oh, that's quite a lot more than the Beacon Fell Visitor Centre.
I'm not sure exactly where she is, but she's put it on at 860.
Okay, well, let's take her height, but we got some sort of position, and I'll take that as her height then. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put that down there, even though it's the wrong height, but it's lower. But so that's been her. That's been
the
her
wrong height.
Well, it's
So it's giving you a
219
little
meters
bit of
they're
slack.
saying here, but I mean that's in my favour. So it's actually, you know, if I take her height, that's fine. I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to take her height of. What you said? What was it? 800? I'm going to get
864 feet.
Which in meters is, you said, was what?
Was 864 is 263.
263 meters. Okay. Right. Okay. So that's somewhere around there, but perhaps I'm not looking at the right. Oh, it does go up a bit actually. Around here.
And she's seeing.
Oh yeah. There is a position. That's right. Okay, away from on the mountain, there is a 263 meter. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Exactly.
So she's seeing a mountain called. I'll just call it Kronk because it's short.
That's gonna be.
Well, that's what I'm going to check.
Point.
That's the first thing I'm going to check because, of course, Ranty, just as he did with his observations on that recent observation, he got the wrong mountain, therefore he got the wrong scale, so he was completely wrong. So every flat earther always misidentifies them. I don't know this woman, perhaps she's a bit different to the usual flat earther. She looked as though from her video as though she's a bit more careful. So I'm prepared to give her a little bit more respect than I usually give a flat earther.
I think that's why she's got the arrow lining up the chimney. She's got the chimney.
Yeah, so it looks as though she's actually
That's
making
a reference point. Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks as though she's actually making a lot more effort than Ranty does, for instance. Right, okay, so if you can see my screen, we're looking at the Isle of Man.
Let's try to find that little smokestack that she pointed.
That's
I mean, as a point of
exactly the
reference.
next thing I wanted to know. So what was that smokestack?
It was on the promenade building. I don't know what the building's called, but she's got it on identified on Google.
Could you tell me the name of that?
I can't. So I don't know. She's just got it identified.
Put a little bit of a 3D view, get it closer, and I think you can identify it because it's one of the highest in that area.
In what? Where's this thing? Which town is it in? Where's this?
I honestly don't know, Rumpus. I'd be guessing.
Right, because the only way I'm going to be able to know that she's got the right mountain, I've got to line up her observation point with that smokestack, and then I can determine which mountain she's supposedly seeing, and I can check.
Okay, so what we need to do is identify the mountain that she's claimed, and then
and we can do that by identifying the location of that smokestack.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, why don't you reverse that, Rumpus? Try to point the mountain she claims
I don't.
and then follow the line to see if it lines up with that little smokestack. Just a little experiment.
I suppose he could do it that way, but that means so she's claiming it was. She was claiming what was the mountain she was claiming it was?
Gronk.
I think it was this one. Was it this one here?
Sorry, Kronk. Cronk. Kronk, and then NY. Array La. Kronk Array La.
Can you post that in the side chat here?
Well, CRONK. CRONK. Kronk.
Yeah.
Space NY.
NY.
Space.
Yeah.
ARREY.
ARREY. Have I spelled it correctly there?
Space LAA.
Oh God, there's more, right? I've typed it into the group chat. Is that correct?
You
said
Kronk. No, you've got Kronk NY and then it's ARREY.
Oh, ARR. So I misheard you. ARREY.
Space LAA. Kronk La.
That right there then.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Right, okay, let's get that. So going back into Google Earth.
It's exciting.
It is. This is so-called a live debunk. I'm looking forward to this. Anyone got any popcorn?
I like this. I love this.
Okay, so that if you can see my screen, that's the
right now. If you follow that line back through, Rumpus, you should.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, let me just go and put a thingy on it. Right. Okay. So, in theory, if she's correct, this would be amazing if Flat Earth has actually identified something correctly. That'd be
that line should cut through the little smokestack if that's accurate.
Okay, why has I got this around the... Oh, there we go. Right. Okay, so if that's correct, this is the thing. Yeah.
Someone
Okay,
kicked
let's
Richard
call
out
that.
the back chat,
Richard
please.
Heaton needs kicking.
Arwin, are you there?
Yeah, I got him.
Good man, because I've not got it on
Thank
screen.
you, Arwin.
Praise Arwin.
Okay, so that. Right, so in theory then, somewhere along this line that you should be able to see here.
Yeah, zoom into Fleetwood.
Oh, that's right. So it's near Fleetwood. Is it? Okay, hold on. This is the line measure. Yeah, two.
This feels like old days in Rumpus when you were a nice guy.
I've all been nice. It's only when I get interrupted persistently and systematically. Do I
Right,
get
zoom in. That car park there, zoom in there, because that's the chimney.
Yeah.
Go on the line. Yeah, there's the car park thing. The chimney's there. It's going through that building.
Ah, here it is. Right. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Okay. That's well. She's already gained some credit from me. That's the first flat earther's ever managed to identify anything correctly that I'm aware of. Well done, that woman. So, okay, so perhaps she's a bit more substance to her. So, okay, that's a good start. Right, and so that does suggest then. Is that actually? I can't remember the footage now. Was that actually directly in line with the mountain? Was it exactly correct? It
was, I believe so. Let me just double check it. Yeah, it goes straight through that building, and then in the background is the mountain.
Okay. Let's see if we're any other mountain, because this is the thing that Ranty doesn't do. For instance, he never checks for other mountains. Like, you got the wrong mountain on that last observation. He picked the one in front of the actual one he's looking at, but there don't seem to be any other mountain here. So that does indeed look like
flat.
That does indeed look as though that is the right mountain. Okay, so
right. So let's talk about numbers then, eh?
Indeed, let's talk about numbers. Right. Okay. So
how big should Crocker
just before you do, sorry guys, just bear with me a sec, Anthony. So, as you've been quite derogatory to quite a number of my fellow flat earthers, let's see how long. Now, apparently we're talking about numbers. It takes Rumpus to beg the question and assume a radius value. Let's see how long that takes.
Well, I am proposing a global Earth model, so of course I'll have a radius in there. And it's been proved, measured
did you just
say
day. I am proposing a global Earth model?
So of course I'm going to use that value. Of course, it's been proved, measured, verified.
So in other words, immediately.
By the body
so
of science.
You are going to beg the question, immediately assume we're on a sphere before doing anything
else.
I
could also, no, hold on. I could also model it on a flat Earth as well and compare the two.
Model what? We just see it. Well, what do we need to model it for?
Well, because to work out what I should see,
What do you mean what we should see? We do see it, you unbelievable buffoon. Why would we now need to figure out what we can see when we can just see it? That makes no sense. I do see it. It is there. Why do we now have to figure out whether or not we should see something that we do see? That makes no sense.
I'm trying to explain, and you're interrupting me.
Hold on. Let's stop this in this, bud. You're going to get quick. Right, this is going to be a really short show for you, Rumpus. This is going to be a really, really short show unless you shut your mouth right now. You're going to get kicked out real quick. I'm asking the questions, and unless you shut your mouth, you're going to get kicked out.
Well, that's fine. If you, and this is just turning you off. You just censor because you can't argue. You can't debate.
I'm asking a question. Are you going to listen to the question?
Okay.
Right. Why would we need to figure out what we can and can't see when we do see it?
No, we obviously don't question what we can see. What we do is we see which model matches the observation. It's very simple.
Why?
Because we want to know which model is correct. So
we just see it. We don't. That's precisely my question.
So
you're ignoring my question. You're ignoring Rumpus. You are now interrupting me.
And I'm trying to answer, and you're interrupting me.
You've just given me your answer. Now I'm responding. You've given me your answer. Right, you're going to get kicked out. You can't have a discourse. You can't have a normal conversation. You're just a child.
Hang on. Jen, stop. Jen, stop. Nathan.
Stop getting interrupting me. God damn it.
I'll do as I like. I run the show.
Let's see what he says.
Right, so the point is, we've got an observation. No one's disputing the observation. So what you then do, you've got two competing models, and then
stop. That's my point. You've told me that I've interrupted you unjustly. That's the very point I've made that you won't let me make.
Go on.
Why have we suddenly got two models? I just see it because it's there. Why do we suddenly have to assess it with models?
Yes, but we need to know. We're trying to determine which model is correct.
Are
so
we?
We need to work out.
Whoa. No.
Are you interrupting me again? Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
that's my objection. You're not listening.
We've got two competing arguments, Nathan. So obviously you model it with one model.
Argument about what? You're not listening to me. You're not listening, Rumpus. Rumpus.
We don't have to pick
now Arwen's
Oh,
rumpusing. Now Arwen's joining in and helping Rumpus.
You could have multiple models, so you could model it on the flat Earth.
Why do we need to model what we obviously and observably see?
Because we want to know which model matches our observations.
Why?
It's really simple.
Why? You're not answering my question.
Because you're claiming you've got a different view of how the world works, and I've got a different view.
I just see it.
Whether or not on my world the observations match, and then you do it on your flat Earth model and see if that matches the observations.
Who cares if it matches a model or not? We just see it.
Yeah, we know. We just say, why are you stating? Yes, we've got our eyes.
Hold on, Rumpus, really quick. Nathan, give me a chance to get a synthesis. Rumpus, 1 second.
One of them.
Okay, Rumpus, 1 second. Just listen to me.
It's called a false dichotomy. We don't need to suddenly compare one model with another because Rumpus has decided that we need to verify his model or our model. That's called a false dichotomy.
It's a false
dichotomy.
Just say it. For the sake of
dichotomy. He's not addressing me. He just keeps saying the same thing. Right.
And then see which
5 more seconds and you're getting kicked out. Right. It's a false dichotomy.
Okay, then we can multiple models then.
No. Adding more doesn't make it any less of a dichotomy. We don't need... Oh, right. Bye-bye, asshole. I was in the middle of a sentence, asshole. Right, you're just pissing me off. Get out. You're just raising my blood pressure unnecessary. You're only here to obfuscate. Sod off. I run the show. If you can't stop talking while I'm talking, you can get out. Right, we don't need a false dichotomy. Suddenly, because we can see something, we need to analyse models. And I'm saying why, and he obfuscates.
So,
give us an answer from chat if you like, Rumpus. I'll ask the same question. Why do we suddenly need to assess it versus your model? Or any model, for that matter. We just see it, it's just there. Why would we need to assess it and compare it to your reification fallacy?
Nathan, as much as I agree with what you've just done, the downside of what you've just done is that we don't get to see how much behind the curve of the Earth this mountain should be, and then we didn't get to see how he's going to wriggle his way out.
How dare you? So you're going to throw the same exact thing that Rumpus is doing in my face as well. How much we should see? What do you mean? How much we should see?
I'm saying that we didn't get to see the benefit of Rumpus wiggling his way around it.
That's my point.
That's not
my point. That's not my point. How much we should see. That's what he will do with his model. Assess how much we should see. Well, how dare anybody come to me with a model and say this model says we should see this or we shouldn't see that. How dare he? That's the point of my question. And when he got to that point, he rumpused the living shit out of me. Now, don't get me wrong, Anthony. I understand that you want to beg the question with these people. I want the audience to understand implicitly that assessing what we see and is observably there and comparing it to what a model says we should or shouldn't see is absolutely benign. It's pointless. It's unnecessary. It's using a reification fallacy to assess what we just see. It's not necessary. My point, the overriding point, which I'll never get to make if Rumpus is on the panel, is our argument for this observation, and any observation, is simple. We see it because it's there. Now that's the end of our argument. He needs to come along and first justify why he's begging the question. He's saying I need to compare it to my model. Why? That's the whole point. You're not here to beg the question, Rumpus, and automatically assume you've got a model that is valid that we need to question whether or not it matches. That's not reality. I've got photos for that. Whether or not it matches your stupid little ball is inconsequential to reality. It matters not. And when I ask why you justify it, you say, well, we want to see which one's right. What do you mean which one's right? We just see it. That's our whole argument. And you've got nothing to come back against that with. Our argument as flat earthers is the most simple, simplistic argument you can have. Why do we see it? Well, because we've opened our eyes and had a look. That's why we see it. Now, according to Rumpus, we need to compare that to something. A globe model. Because he says we live on a sphere. His model dictates how much we should or shouldn't see of this mountain. And I'm absolutely tired of it. Why are we begging the question? I asked him if he had proof of R. I jokingly said, how long will it take for Rumpus to beg the question and assume his outcome? That's a logical fallacy. To assume one's outcome is a fallacy. And I asked the question, how long before Rumpus begs the question? Well, immediately. I must beg the question. Oh, that's not a justifiable excuse. That's not a reason to be fallacious in your argument, asserting it that you must. Sorry, why are you going to use a logical fallacy here? Oh, well, because we've got a false dichotomy. That's not an answer either. So I'm then trying to pin him down on this stuff, and the people around me, they want the brainwashing. They want to assume first that they're on a sphere and see where that sphere doesn't work. We're not on a sphere. There's nothing to suggest we're on a sphere. Zero. Nothing. The only way to assert you're on a sphere is to first assume you're on a sphere. And when I ask how long before he assumes we're on a sphere, then, well, immediately. And if I do it immediately and forcefully and don't let you point out that this is, by definition, fallacious reasoning, then I'll get away with rumpusing the rest of the show. And hopefully people will empathise when I get kicked out for not shutting the hell up. He doesn't like these points. It's fallacious reasoning. It's fallacious to assume your outcome. It's called begging the question. So when Sly Sparkane doesn't seem to get it, because he can't listen to the name of the calculator, then that's why he exerts his fallacious reasoning on you, the audience. That's why you get deceived. Well, that's more fool you. Fool me once, shame on me. Well, you, the Muppets in the audience, are being fooled continually. And we're pointing it out to you. Logical fallacy, begging the question, assuming your outcome. Well, if Rumpus is going to come on and say, right, this observation, let's see how much it compares to my assumption that we're on a sphere. Oh, well, I don't care. I don't assume we're on a sphere. What do you mean you've got a bloody model? So what? Does that mean anything in reality? Well, no, that's another logical fallacy. It's called... Oh my God, this is your favourite fantasy, Anthony. You go on about this all the time. The reification fallacy. To assert that something that is a model is actually your real world. It isn't. On screen now, that's real world. That's a picture, perspective inclusive, I might add. Well, these Muppets, we're handing their asses on a plate at the moment. They've excluded perspective. That's how they've done it. That's how they've tricked you. The simple trick of removing perspective and calling it curvature. And how do they do it? Well, they do it with the model. That's how they do it. You're into 3 steps along the line of the begging the question fallacy if you're looking at the model, and that's what Rumpus wants to do immediately. Well, no. I'm not tolerating it anymore. I made that clear at the end of the Isle of Man model assertion that's still not come to fruition. Has anybody seen this Isle of Man model of the north end of the Isle of Man that you've got from your belly, Anthony?
No.
Right. Well, I said to him quite specifically, that is the last opportunity to beg the question here. I'll let you have this one, Rumpus. You can beg the question with this particular model. Model in your nonsense fantasy of refraction superlooming with Anthony on his belly catching the Isle of Man at 34 miles. Has he? Has he? Hell. He just wants to come on, rumpus the living shit out of this hangout and demand that he gets to beg the question here. No. Don't you know the rules yet, you fool? You don't get to beg the question here. You don't just get to talk over the host indefinitely and assert that you're being cut off. Yes, I am stopping you from using fallacious reasoning. You don't get to beg the question. Assuming automatically that we're on a sphere and going from there, that don't happen on this show. I'm afraid not, you fool. So... for anybody who feels that I've been unfair to Rumpus, tell him to sort out his fallacious reasoning. We do shows on logical fallacy to make you understand that it's not sound reasoning to assume one's outcome. Precisely what Rumpus did the moment I asked how long it would take to do so. Immediately is the answer. Now, if this doesn't set off alarm bells for the audience, then you are simply stupid. You don't understand what we have explained to you. That's fine. You can believe the lies of somebody who can talk longer and louder than everybody else on the panel when they assert that they must beg the question. No, you don't have to. You can be free of these shackles. You can be free of the deceit. You don't have to use fallacious reasoning. You can believe your own bloody eyes when you see a mountain at 80 plus miles and say, there it is, I see it because it's there. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. I don't need a model to tell me what I do and don't see. Anyway, my lecture over. I'm sorry to lecture you specifically, Anthony, but you love to beg the question. I thought I was getting somewhere with Ranty the other day. You know what I mean?
That's okay, but if you do want to see what the results of begging the question is, go to the video and watch it on Sandra's channel. It's worthy of a good shout out because she does beg the question and shows what it shouldn't do, and obviously it does it. So even though Nathan is tired of it, and I do agree with him, I'm not disagreeing with him. It's just worth crediting Sandra for taking the time to do all the homework on it, and shout outs to her. So make sure you go to her channel, you like and subscribe, because she's doing the work that basically we use on the show. So massive shout outs to Sandra, and obviously the Earth is obviously and observably flat.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll let Rumpus beg the question again. If he keeps up his side of the agreement and actually does as he has said. Last time we agreed, we all agreed. This is the last opportunity to beg the question. Where's your model? Model out this observation that you specifically, Anthony, you did. Has he done so? No. Well, that flat out makes him a liar. I don't want liars here. Don't lie to us, Rumpus. You said you'd produce it. You haven't. That was your opportunity to beg the question, not come here and talk over me and assert that you must beg the question with this new observation at ridiculous distances that you absolutely shouldn't see if there was a curve in the way, which there is not, ever. We don't observe any curve. You're going to study the obstruction and call curvature an obstruction at the horizon. That's what you're going to do, whilst simultaneously begging the question. Then you'll introduce 7/6 of the radius, terrestrial refraction. Then you'll massage that up and call it superlooming. I'm absolutely tired of this crap. For the people watching that don't get it yet, you're all being deceived. This kind of crap is how you get lied to. Layer upon layer upon layer of utter nonsense. And you guys gobble it up, you baller retards. Yum num 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 num. Really? Superlooming, you say? Mathematically valid? Num 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 num. Oh right, well the Earth's still a ball then. Thank you, Rumpus. No, the guy's just fallacious.
Nathan, that rant after you kick out after Rumpus was kicked out, that rant that you had, like 5 minutes rant, was one of the best in a long time. People is agreeing in the chat. Somebody please crop that video of 5 minutes rant of Nathan and upload it everywhere. It was awesome. Thank you.
Everybody loves a good rant. I'm in a really good mood. I've got a piece of equipment back that was broken and has been for about 5 years, and it's heartbreaking. I'm a hi-fi enthusiast, and it was one of my amps, so I haven't listened to any music really on my stereo for about 5 years, and I got it fixed. So I'm in the best possible mood, but it doesn't change the fact that I won't tolerate any shit. I'm not going to beg the question here. I'm sick of it.
I guess so, aren't they going to say, how can you have a debate, Nathan, if you can't let us beg the question?
How can I can't believe that people would even say such a thing. Sorry. How can we not just automatically assume we've won? I want to automatically assume that we're on a ball in this debate because that's what I'm trying to prove. What's wrong with that? Oh, well, I'll just come on your debate and say, well, I'm going to automatically assume that I've got flying monkeys in my garage. So, yeah, stick that in his pipe and smoke it. Flying monkeys, man. Just assume it. Just accept it. Well, no, you wouldn't, would you? You'd think it was unreasonable if I asserted that I've got flying monkeys in my garage, and you must just accept it as a presupposition for every argument I make that's based on the understanding that they are there. Well, that's what people do when they come here and beg the question. Let's just accept from the off that we are on a sphere. And every example I give will start with that presupposition. You must accept it, believe in R you trust. Sod that. That's where they cheat you. Every single example ever of a globe will start with the presupposition that you're on a globe. Jerky hangout. Damn it. Dropping frames left and right.
Nathan, was the chimney the line of target that Rumpus was conceding to or working with?
What are you saying? If we beg the question, would it have worked out in their or our favour?
No, I just want to know, what was the line of target? What was he getting at this? Was it the chimney stacks that he was looking at to get that 86 miles or 80 miles to the distance?
Oh, I see. No, the chimney stacks were just used as a reference to line up what mountain they were looking at in the distance on the Isle of Man. So obviously the last thing on the coast is that chimney stack. So that's obviously, it's nothing in the foreground because she's identified the last thing on that bit of coast. And then beyond that is just the Isle of Man. So what mountain is it? Well, the only mountain on that line of sight, as Rumpus correctly identified.
Excellent. Okay. And he conceded that he says that he sees that, but that was 80 miles already. So I'm assuming, why would he actually, if he sees it at that distance, there would really be no need to actually do the extra math. It's the perspective is pretty much showing it's in front view. My actual extra question is actually, what would be the actual vanishing point without the use of a camera? The 86 miles, seeing the actual chimney stack, or is it much closer of a distance? Because if it's much closer of a distance, then we're dealing with a different vanishing point.
What do you mean by vanishing point?
Oh, I mean, like, basically, it's very interesting. If you, let's just say, without even using a camera, and you're looking at a distance at 80 miles, and the line of targets, for example, would be the chimney stacks. Just my simple question.
Your eyes will not resolve that mountain in the far. You will not see it at all with your eyes.
Excellent, Jose. That's the question I'm asking. So, therefore, the human observer's eye, their first vanishing would be what Jose is saying. Theoretically, he says before even seeing the actual mountain. Now, if we were to pick up a camera or a telescope like the P900, that means that camera is piercing through the observer's eye, which is the vanishing point. The original.
I think I know what you mean. So what you're saying is, as you look out in the distance with your human eye, you see a point where you can no longer see any further into the distance. Well, that's
correct,
actually that's not the first vanishing point. That's the diffraction limit of your eye, and it's based on the opening, the aperture, the size of the hole. So how much it can let through will dictate your diffraction limit. And you're right, you go to a camera with a bigger aperture, and you get to zoom further. You get to see the diffraction limit be extended, essentially. So things won't disappear into being 1 pixel and then no pixels until much further into the distance. But that's diffraction limit.
So let's just say at the diffraction point, which is, let's say it's actually that's the actual wall right there, that hump, that is actually where the first light begins, because that's even without the camera. They're telling us that's where the horizon is at, and that's where the boats go over the curve. Now, that person that said it, or actually didn't say it, picks up a camera and pierces right through the diffraction limit. Now, does the math get worse with that, and does the perspective become more aligned with it? That's the blend that I'm looking at, whether the actual math matches the perspective. I'll give you guys to think about it if you had any questions, but that's where I'm going with my logic.
I see exactly what you're saying, but yeah, you're talking about two different things. So there's the convergence point that things will disappear into the distance, and that's potentially increased in terms of what you can see and where it converges by how far you can zoom. But in terms of when things will disappear from the bottom up because of a limited angle, because they've got too small in terms of how big their angular size is, at the point that their angular size is too small to see, that is the diffraction limit.
But then again, I think that diffraction limit is, if we're saying the diffraction limit is based on where the eye can see that distance, where it's clarity, and they know, that limit point. I mean, I'm still using an actual instrument to go beyond that threshold.
I mean, you can't go beyond the atmospheric conditions. So if, like Sandra, when she pans to the left, if there is an atmospheric obstruction, that's it. You can't see through that, and it doesn't matter how much zoom you've got. But if she was to look at that same picture with the naked eye, there's a good chance she might not even see the waterline before the Isle of Man, because that's beyond her diffraction limit of her eyeball. She's got P1000 on it, and suddenly you can see right into what was a tiny sliver of horizon suddenly opens out and becomes an expanse of water and the Isle of Man behind it. But that is all down to, you know, the capabilities of the camera, as opposed to the point of convergence, which is what you're kind of describing when you say vanishing point.
But let's just say this. Let's just say if we avoid the camera and we're going to scale and measure the distance just with the human observer's eye, it would be the same exact conversation. I mean, same exact debate or same exact, you know, it would, the math and everything will still fall with that diffraction limit. And that diffraction limit may even be called the vanishing point without even the use of the camera or a telescope. That's still where my logic is at.
Well, yes, I think a good demonstration would be, rather than most of the boats over the horizon from 2015 to date have been a camera watching a boat disappear into the diffraction limit, and a glober would claim, as they do, that's going over the curve of the Earth, and we would claim that's going into the most limited angle because of perspective and the diffraction limit. Now, what would be a more interesting observation would be to take something like an iPhone and watch it go into its diffraction limit over the curve, you say, because then once it's gone into the diffraction limit of the iPhone's limited aperture, you could then pull out something with a slightly more larger hole in the camera, literally, and a better zoom in, and then watch that go into what they call going over the curve again. So in other words, it goes into that limited angle, the diffraction limit of the camera is breached, and it does the same thing. But then you pick up a P900 and zoom in on it, watch it reach the diffraction limit of that, and then you've got 3 stages of what they call going over the curvature.
Now, question, Nathan, are we presuming that we're going to do the curvature map based on the diffraction limit, or actually based on when it starts with a vanishing point? Because this is where I'm still trying to find out what the ballers or the flat earthers are trying to determine where they start to scale.
Well, they don't in the respective perspective, because they are using the whole numbers for things that they measure. You know, this mountain, when Sandra puts her numbers in, she's putting sort of globe head sympathetic numbers up, which is to say that, you know, it's 1400 whatever it was feet. But that's like the turbine example when it was being played. There's a turbine in the near foreground that's presumably let's assume it's the same make and model as one that's in the far distance, that in terms of its pixel height is quadruple the size. But that's because it's close. But they don't account for that. You know, that turbine's the same size at any distance in their calculations. That's how they've hijacked perspective. Anyway, I've got to round out this first show, and my kid wants my attention, so hopefully you guys will chat away in the interim. But I will say a massive, huge, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this live debate. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of the live panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then smash the dislike button, but then smash it again. But if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!